Perfect. Nice. Hi guys, happy to be here. Today we're going to talk about the environmental impact of generative AI. So I'm Guillaume, I work at Theodo Data and AI. So I work on the wide range of technical projects, including generative AI. So from developing products to actually running the infrastructure that powers generative AI. Today, we'll look at the environmental costs of running generative AI solutions. So we've talked a lot about generative AI today. We're going to take a step back, and hopefully, if I succeed today, you will get a better grasp of the cost of running a single GPT-like query. So before diving in, it's a good thing to take a step back and look at the supply chain. So generative AI doesn't live in a vacuum. So there are different steps involved in the process, from mining to silicon manufacturing, architecturing the chip design, to running the data center. Each of these steps can be analyzed with different metrics. So there is hydric stress, material depletion, energy costs. Today, we'll just focus on one. My guess is that most of you are probably here. So building with generative AI are upon it. So it makes sense to just look at the operational cost with the electricity consumption lens to get a better grasp of the cost of running generative AI queries. So if we look at the IT sector as a whole, it consumes about 4% of the global electricity supply. So that's about half of what is used for building cooling, for example. Out of that, AI sits at about 1/10 of the global energy supply, but that's only half of the story because AI is growing more rapidly than any other sectors. So some scenarios project that by 2030, AI consumption could be multiplied by 5 or 10 times. So that would make AI consumes just as much as a country like France, for example, during 1 year. One could ask, where does all this energy goes? So broadly speaking, training and inference. So for the training part, each new model generation consumes more and more energy. Between the previous generation and GPT-4, there's been a huge gap, including the size of the training data set and the numbers of parameters. For the latest generation, so GPT-5 or Llama 4, it's actually extremely difficult to get numbers. Providers are not very keen on sharing that kind of information. And for the inference costs, so that's the daily operation, sending billions of queries to tools like ChatGPT consumes a lot of energy. So for to anchor it into something more intuitive, a single ChatGPT request consumes about 10 times more than a Google request. So taking to isolation might not seem that much, but when you factor in scaling, that's where the inference cost actually weighs in. The current estimation for training versus inference is about a 40 to 60 split. That number needs to be taken with a pinch of salt because, as I said, it's actually quite hard to get that kind of numbers. So if you want to include environmental consideration into your project, there are basically 2 levers of action you can use. The first one is project strategy. You need to ask early how many users, how many tokens am I going to use? What's the gain? So either financial, efficiency, environmental. Having that kind of decision framework coupled with tools that I share later will help you gain more control and a better estimation of your project before the start. And the other side, obviously, is going to be on the technical implementation level. So there are many levers of action you can tweak. I only talk about one, which I think is maybe the more relevant to you guys. So that would be cloud provider and region selection. So having the right cloud provider will matter. Some of them have made a pledge for carbon neutrality. And region selection is also quite important because the carbon intensity of the energy grid varies a lot from one country to another. So for example, running a GenAI solution in France versus Poland will have dramatic different costs from one country to the other. Lastly, I want to share some tools, so I've highlighted those behind me. I won't have time to cover them all, but if I only have to make you go home with one of them, I would advise you to have a look at Ecologits. So Ecologits is a tool developed by Hugging Face that gives you a per query analysis of different environmental metrics. That includes energy costs, but also water depletion, e-waste, and material depletion. It comes in two forms. So there's a UI that you can check out on the website. Lets you play around with different cloud providers, different use cases, so different types of prompts and different regions. And it gives you comparison with like daily activities, which is quite good to give you a sense of perspective. Also comes in the form of a software development kit that you can deploy in your project to track your environmental costs at every step. So for the other, I'll be happy to discuss that with you after the talk if you want. Thank you very much.